Guys, it's your girl, Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, where we teach you how to start at the top of the speaking market instead of working your way up from the bottom. During this show, you will hear solo episodes from me, where I'll show you how I have landed and negotiated 5- and 6-figure speaking contracts and licensing deals. You'll also hear from our amazing guests who have grown enormous speaking businesses by utilizing sales and marketing principles that work. If you want to grow your speaking business, listen to this podcast, and then afterwards, head on over to ashleynicolekirkwood.shop and grab my book, Speak Your Way to Cash, How to Start at the Top of the Speaking Market Instead of Working Your Way Up from the Bottom. Ready to dive in? Let's go. Hey, it's your girl, Ashley Kirkwood. Today, we are doing a rerun episode of one of our favorite Speak Your Way to Cash podcast interviews. I know you're going to get crazy value out of this. So go ahead, listen in, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Let's get into this interview. Hey guys, it's Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. Today, I have the infamous Michael Port, New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and you also have a theatrical background, if I was reading the book correctly. So he's going to be talking to us all about heroic public speaking and how he has really built his empire successfully and advice he has for new speakers. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about who you are. How do you describe yourself and what you do now and what you've done in the past?
Well, I describe myself as a seriously flawed human being who just tries to do his best every day. You know, I think that especially in the world of personal development, business development, there's this mythology that exists that you're supposed to, at some point, just figure it all out and have all the answers. And then everything just clicks and everything is just easy. You ride off into the sunset with your, millions of dollars in cash and everything's perfect. And I haven't actually found that to be true. So, some days you have huge wins and other days, you don't. And sometimes you have a big win in the morning and then in the afternoon, you're anxious and frustrated and, having trouble solving a problem. So I think the greatest pleasure really from supporting my family and the people that I serve, I think that heroic public speaking is the greatest gift that I've ever been given. My wife and I created it, but I really do feel like it's a gift that we've received. I think that we exist for the development of the people who work here and the development of our students. So yeah, just a flawed, human trying to do his best. That's really as simple as that.
Now, I did not know that your wife was the co-founder or co-creator of Heroic Public Speaking. So is she also, does she also have a performance background? And
she does, yeah. So she actually went to the Yale School of Drama and got her master's when I was at NYU getting my master's. And she, of course, got into both programs. I only got into NYU. I did not get into Yale. But she chose.
We won't hold that against you.
Well, we would have met, 25 years ago. But it's interesting. We actually met out here where we live in New Hope, Pennsylvania, about 11 years ago. And it's her performance background that was the inciting incident, I think, that helped us meet. So I was going to pick up my son at daycare. It was, the after school program. And I got out of my car and I closed my door and I heard a voice from about 65 feet away. And I thought, should I say something? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to say something. Now, it wasn't like a pickup line. I really had this immediate hit that she must be an actor. But we're in New Hope, Pennsylvania. There's not a lot of actors in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It's not like we're in New York City or LA,
right?
Where, every street corner is dotted with actors. But I went up to her and I said, I know this is going to sound crazy because we're in New Hope, Pennsylvania, but are you an actor? And she said, no. I mean, I was. Why? I said, where did you train? She said, Yale. I said, when were you there? And she told me. I said, I was at NYU grad at the same time. And she said, well, how do you know? I said, your voice. I can tell that you have a trained voice. She said, I just heard you from 65 feet away.
She's probably thinking, I wonder if this is a pickup line.
Yeah, but she says that she really didn't think it was because I was really, really, first of all, I was right. That's, and it wasn't just, are you an actor, but it was, where did you train?
Right.
She has such an open and resonant voice, and her speech is so clear that I could tell that she had training, and that's how we met.
Interesting. Now, I was introduced to you through the Book Yourself Solid book. I read the book and I loved the buildup of the book. I loved what you talked about. But one of the things that I was thinking as reading that book was, how do you go from not being an entrepreneur to really figuring out the principles that it takes to get bookings and get out there and get engaged? And what did your day-to-day look like when you were first starting out, when you were first trying to get clients, first trying to build your business? What did that look like? Because most of our listeners are in the first year to 3 years of building their speaking business.
Yeah, sure. So when I left acting, I didn't think I had any particular marketable skills. I had a master's degree in acting and an undergraduate degree in theater as well. But I was really into fitness at the time. And there was a job opening for a group exercise manager. And I thought, oh, well, this is great. I'll go apply for that job. And I was very lucky to get the interview, but I had none of the qualifications they were looking for. None of the certifications they were looking for. And so I said to them, listen, I have none of these qualifications, none of these certifications, but I think that you should consider me, and here's why. And so I made my case to them that they were hiring the wrong people for that particular role, and that they should hire me because I had a particular set of strengths. And I was very fortunate. I was able to talk my way into that job for which I was completely unqualified, in large part by telling them I was unqualified, but making a strong case as to why they should give me a shot. Because, people will give you a shot if they believe that you are going to work harder than anybody else, and they think you might be well suited for that particular position. And of course, I figured, well, I don't have anything to lose because I don't have this job. All they can do is say no. But if I go in there and try to be like everybody else, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to be able to compete in that way. And I think that taught me a really, really important lesson. And I took that lesson out into the world. When I left the fitness industry, I spent about 5 years on the business side before I started my own consultancy and started speaking. But I took that same approach, when I went and, was trying to book gigs and trying to book consulting gigs. There was another lesson that I learned too late as an actor, but it does come from the world of acting. And I think this applies also, especially in the beginning of a career. One of the things that I did when I was an actor that did not serve me well is, I'd get an audition and then, I go pick up the script from my agent's office. And in those days, of course, you had to hump your way up there on the train to get the script. Now, of course, I'm sure they just download the PDF. But in those days, you actually had to pick up a paper script. And then I'd look at it and go, okay, what's the casting director looking for? What's the director looking for? What's the producer looking for? I'd try to figure that out. But that's not really helpful, because very often the casting director just wants you to come in and make really strong choices that the director is interested in, so they don't get fired. Because very often, if a director doesn't see actors that she likes, then they just replace the casting director, thinking that's the problem. And of course, who does the next casting director bring in? Most of the same actors again, because there's the same pool that they're pulling from the same group of agencies. And then the director often is, let's say it's a big movie and it's their first movie. They've done, 25 music videos and they just got $200 million to do a movie. And they're thinking, geez, I hope this actor doesn't ask me any questions because I don't really know what to tell them. I just want them to do it. And the producer is just thinking like, can I put this unknown in the movie? Do I have enough star power, to get away with putting an unknown in this role? They're not looking for you to look to them. They're looking for you to come in and make strong choices and show them what the work should look like. And I think the same thing is true for meeting planners. And the same thing is true for publishers. If you go try to pitch a book to a publisher, they're not interested in you coming in and saying, what do you think I should write about?
Right.
They want you to come in and say, look, here's the market I'm serving. Here's the position that I'm taking here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to show them, to demonstrate that you have very, very strong opinions that are visionary in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
That sometimes feels hard at the beginning of a career because you often don't feel like you have the confidence to do that. You feel like you don't have enough expertise, right? Yep. And here's the problem. This is a major, major problem for a lot of people at the beginning of a career, especially for speakers who want to get booked on keynote stages, is they think they have to increase their expertise. And what they do is they try to do more things to get more expertise.
Right.
But experts are a dime a dozen. Experts are everywhere. You just go on YouTube. You can find an expert for anything. You want a cuddling expert? You can find cuddling experts. There's in fact a conference called Cuddle Expo for cuddling experts. And so, of course, like many people who have a little yard in the back, I picked up gardening at the beginning of the pandemic, figuring.
So did my husband.
Yes, of course, right? We need some project. We can't just sit around the house. So we've got to do something. So I'm out there building boxes with whatever wood I could find in my basement. And all I have to do is go on YouTube and I can find thousands of experts, that can help me learn how to prune my cucumber plants and my tomato plants, etc. But meeting planners, when they're booking keynotes, are not looking for experts. They're looking for visionaries who can challenge the status quo. They're looking for visionaries who bring big new ideas that change the way people see the world. Mm-hmm. An expert delivers current best practices. And experts are absolutely valuable. In fact, I hire lots of experts, but I usually hire experts as vendors.
Right.
But if I'm hiring a keynote or if I'm hiring an advisor, I want a visionary. I want a visionary who's going to change the way I see the world, who's going to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
My colleague Andrew Davis and I are almost done with a new book that's called The Referable Speaker. We plan on releasing it in January of 2021. And it's one of the big ideas in the book. It's one of the premises in the book. And then what we do is we focus on how do you become a visionary and deliver a transformational visionary speech rather than just delivering how-to best practices. Because if there are three types of sessions, there's workshops, there's breakouts, and there's keynotes. Mm-hmm. The keynotes are usually, again, not always, but usually, especially the big conferences that are high paying, the keynotes are usually delivered by the visionaries.
Yep.
Lisa Nichols, Simon Sinek, they're sharing big visionary ideas. The breakout sessions and the workshops are delivered by experts.
Right.
So you might go there and have a great experience. You go, I learned lots of hacks and tips and tricks. But the meeting planner is not going to put the hacks and tips and tricks on the main stage for the big money, for the keynote slot. They're going to put the visionary ideas that change the way the audience sees the world.
100% true. That distinction is so powerful that I'm like over here, like, yes. I love that distinction. But I wonder, because it took a certain level of confidence, at least for me, before I even started to think in big ideas and think that people would care about my vision for the world. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend? Because I know in your book on speaking, you talk about those who maybe don't have confidence and don't have the theatrical background, how they too can have confidence in speaking. But when it comes to being a visionary, what did you do to get your confidence to a place where you're like, you know what, not only do I have big ideas, but people want to hear those ideas. And then you started packaging it. What was that process like, from idea to confidence to pitch it to packaging?
So let's start by focusing on producing results rather than trying to get approval. Because many folks go into this work and are driven by the need for approval. And if you're driven by the need for approval, it's very, very hard to build confidence because you will never, ever get enough approval.
Yes.
Ever. Because you could have 1,000 people in the audience and 999 of them are on their feet, clapping, hooping and hollering, and one person sitting back there like this. And all you'll think about is that one person if you're going for approval. But instead, focus on results. Now, how do you get results? Well, you get results by staying curious. You want to build confidence, I think, stay curious and ask questions that Google cannot answer.
Yeah.
Because if you can ask questions Google cannot answer and eventually can answer those questions, then you will start to become a visionary. Experts and Google compete with each other. And if Google can give me the answer really easily, then it's an expert, session. But if I say, how can I stop speaking and start performing? Google can't answer that.
That's very good.
But we can. And that's why the best performers in the world come and work out all their material with us, because we can show them how to be performers that can create visionary transformational experiences for audiences. And that's what makes HPS very visionary in its work. And so try to be able to answer a question, a big question that Google cannot answer, that is relevant, interesting, timely, and important to the people that you serve. And you're likely to get put up on those keynote stages.
I love that. Now, in terms of, you mentioned results. And one of the things that a lot of the meeting planners that I speak to want to know is what type of transformation can we expect? It's tough for me to think about a transformation in like a very short period of time, like a 30-minute speech or a 45-minute speech. When you are a keynote speaker and you're doing those short keynote presentations, how do you quantify the results that the audience gets when you're packaging to other meeting planners?
Yeah, that's something that people struggle with, because sometimes meeting planners will say, what are the 3 key takeaways?
Right. They always say that. I have that email in my inbox right now, 10 times over.
Exactly. So, and sometimes I'll push back on them. I think, you got to feel out the situation, right? And use your social intelligence to figure out, well, how much, can you push back? But I think that it depends on what the objective is. Again, if they're asking for 3 key takeaways, they might be looking for an expert session.
Right.
Well, then they're looking for how-tos.
Right.
Great. Give them the how-tos. They're going to learn how to do this, 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 and this, because it may satisfy a need that they think they have.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you deliver that speech, deliver a transformational, visionary idea that changes the way the audience thinks, as well as those key takeaways.
Yes.
Because one of the things that skews meeting planners' perspectives are the audience surveys. Mm-hmm. Because they see these surveys that people fill out, and then they think, oh, well, the people who are filling out the surveys, they say they want, more how-to stuff. So then they think the speaker should deliver more how-to stuff. But who is filling out those surveys? If you have an audience that includes the C-suite, executives, managers, and frontline practitioners, of those 5 groups, which one do you think is filling out the surveys? The practitioners. Yeah. People on the front lines. Now, the problem is that they're only one segment of the audience, and there is an audience hierarchy of needs. And when we're designing speeches, we want to make sure that we serve all of the levels of the audience's hierarchy of needs. So as we indicated, there are at the bottom, think, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. So at the bottom of the audience hierarchy of needs are the practitioners, and they want how-to advice. Great. We'll give them some how-to advice. The next level up are the managers. Managers want how should we advice, because they're trying to get the practitioners to do what they want them to do. The next level up are the executives. They want to know, how do they advise? Meaning, how do other executives in other industries do what we want to do? Then the next level up is the C-suite. They want challenging big ideas that change the way they see the world. And so if you want more gigs, you've got to be able to speak to all of the people in the audience's hierarchy of needs, because the people who will refer you to get more gigs are the people in the C-suite. The practitioners don't have the ability to refer.
Right. That's very true.
And here's the thing. There's something that we call the Keynote conundrum. Now, the Keynote conundrum is this. When people start marketing themselves as speakers, they look at really, really successful keynoters, big name keynoters, and they say, oh man, I'm going to get a website like them. And I got to get like a video with splashy, sizzle reel. And I need arresting imagery of me on stage going, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I should buy some YouTube ads of me speaking. Yeah, that would be good. That'll do it. Right. And then it doesn't work. Nothing happens. Those speakers have earned it. They've been on those big stages, so they've got all that arresting imagery, but we don't have it if we're at the beginning. How do we have a really big sizzle reel of us on big stages when we've never been there?
Right.
How do we get those cool action shots? We can't. So it doesn't work. And then the speaker who's been there for 20 years will say, well, you just got to pay your dues. You just got to do those chicken dinner speeches.
Right. Do 500 speeches free.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, it's crazy. Right. So our theory is this. And I felt the same way. And I wrote about this in Book Yourself Solid. I think that marketing doesn't actually get you clients. It doesn't book business. It doesn't. What you do once somebody becomes aware of you is always what books you the business.
Mm-hmm.
So as a speaker, if somebody becomes aware of you, they need to see you speak.
Yeah.
If you're delivering a speech that is what we call a referable speech, meaning they see it and they want it, or they want to tell someone else about it, then you will book speech after speech after speech after speech, because the most successful speakers in the world, every time they deliver a speech, they get multiple leads.
Yes.
So when you're delivering a speech and it's, let's say there's a decent sized audience, you should be getting multiple leads. So let's say you get 4 leads. Well, you should be booking 2 of those. So if you book 2 leads, that's 2 more speeches. Now you are going to book, you're going to get 8 leads. So you're going to book 4 speeches. Then you're going to get 16 and book 8, and so on and so forth. And you can leverage the power of compounding gigs. But if the speech that you're delivering is not producing stage side leads, if people are not coming up to you after that speech or filling out a form on your website during the speech or calling you the week later, it's not yet a transformational, referable speech. The speech needs the work. So what we recommend people do is, instead of focusing on the marketing, focus on the speech.
Typically, that's not the focus first. The focus is, how do I get paid? How do I do the marketing side of it? And that makes sense. But if you get on stage, you can work your way to your first speech. I tell everyone that I work with that you can work your way to your first speech, but you cannot necessarily work your way to your 10th if the first one is really bad. Because you get on that stage and it flops, they're not going to refer you. And even now in the virtual world, what I found is a lot of my clients, even if they haven't seen me speak, they'll ask, can I speak to the last person that you spoke to? And they have a private conversation without me. And based on that conversation will bring me in to do some work for the organization.
That's right. Yeah. All you need to do is one speech. You just need to book one speech.
Yeah.
And if the speech you deliver is good enough, well, then the whole year is set. That is how it works when you've got a referable speech. But if you're not getting the stage side leads, then it's back to the drawing board. Because look, I don't know, one of the questions that we had for ourselves, and this is sometimes this is one of the ways that you can figure out what question you want to answer that Google can't, is you look at what frustrates you. What frustrates you about your industry, about the world that you just, inhabit? Because often you're going to be pretty passionate about that thing.
Yeah.
So I was always frustrated by the fact that I see so many speakers delivering speeches that were below their capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they had more to offer, but it just wasn't there. And I said, why? Because my theory is, I think everybody's doing their best. Even when we don't think they are, they're doing their best, because nobody's going to go up on stage and try to do anything but their best. So that's the best that they can do on that day. And I said, why? Well, maybe because they're winging it. So why are they winging it is the next question. Well, because they don't know any better. Well, why don't they know any better? Well, because they don't have craft. They don't have stagecraft, and they don't have the craft of speech writing. Now, I learned the craft of stagecraft in a master's level program at NYU. My wife learned it in a master's level program at Yale. We were incredibly privileged to go to these programs.
Yeah.
It took 100 years to pay off my student loans. But just to get to that education was extraordinary. So the first time I got on a stage, I knew how to move on stage.
Right.
In a way that most speakers didn't, because I was professionally trained. It would be like getting into a race car, having no experience racing cars. It's probably not going to go very well.
Right.
But if you know how to race a car, driving a regular car is going to be pretty easy. So why don't they have any craft? Well, because you don't learn that in college, in high school, in business school. They're not going to teach you that. They may give you a public speaking course where they just teach you not to say a lot. But outside of that, they don't really have the ability to teach you the craft. So we said, well,
I think that some of the speakers that I've come in contact with overvalue the marketing and undervalue the art of performance, because I'm of the mind, no one pays me to speak. They always pay me to perform. So I did theater in high school and debate, and I was a trial lawyer. So I was like, you put the jury to sleep being a boring trial lawyer, not thinking about performance or tone or pitch or drama or pausing or movement. Like, you have to perform. Everyone likes a performance. People pay for it all over the world every day of the week, but no one's paying you to just get up there and talk.
That's right. So what do most people do when they work on a speech? They say, okay, I'm going to get my title. Got my title.
Yeah.
All right. So let me open up PowerPoint. I'm going to open up PowerPoint. Okay, now I got PowerPoint. So I need some key points. So I'm going to write something at the top of it. Now I'm going to go to Google, get some images. I'm going to put them in here. Okay, I got that done. And then I'll run through it a couple times beforehand. And I'll use my PowerPoint as my notes. That'll cue me. And then I'll wing it inside it. But I'm an expert. I know my material. I can answer questions on it. So I'm good to go. And that's usually the extent of it. But if someone was writing a book, how many hours do they put into the book?
Yeah.
I mean,
hundreds, thousands. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we put the same kind of time into a speech? Well, because it's easier just to go and talk it.
Well, and because you've already been paid. And so a lot of people don't put the time in after getting the paycheck, which is the ultimate goal for a lot of speakers, to do what it takes to be good at your craft, and recognizing that it is a craft, it is a skill set, and it's something that you can grow into. It's not set. So just because you don't have it now doesn't mean you can't become an excellent speaker and performer and really give people an experience.
That's right. And talent is overrated, very overrated. Yeah. Talent will get you so far, right? You got the gift of gab, charm, can tell a good story, but that's probably not going to be transformational. You mentioned something that you were a trial attorney. And one of the things that you understood as a trial attorney, right from the get-go, I imagine, was the stakes.
Right.
If you are defending a client or if you're prosecuting a case, the stakes are very high. If you just go in there and wing it, if you're defending somebody who is not guilty, they could be going to prison for a long time because you didn't do your job. So
and thankfully, I did not do that type of law. It was always money on the line. So I did large corporate trials, but I did do civil rights litigation. And one of the things we did was we always did a mock jury. And I was in charge of assembling the mock jury, figuring, and we would not only do a mock jury, but we would watch them. They didn't know. We would be behind a glass wall and we would watch them deliberate for the mock jury and figure out what were the words that they utilized to describe the different lawyers and what pieces of the theme did they repeat while doing their deliberations. And then we'd hone in on those pieces. And so the level of preparation that goes into it and the money, the level of preparation and the money that goes into that was something that I brought with me to speaking. Like, okay, well, how will people feel at each point of the speech? And what type of emotion am I trying to convey? And that level of detail is important. And it's more important to me that I show up and perform exceptionally well than it is for me to just get the check. I mean, the check is just one piece of the puzzle. If I don't perform well, then it's not going to be a repeatable situation.
Yeah, you're not doing it just for the money. That's the other thing.
You want to make sure people feel something and remember what you say.
That's right.
Not just feel it in the moment. It has to stick.
Yes. Well, there are three things in there that are really important. One, you talked about how the audience feels. We want to make sure we understand how we want our audience to feel at any given moment of a speech.
Yep.
And our job is to play actions, to pursue objectives, to influence the audience so that they feel differently. Because if we can make them feel differently, then we can help them think differently. And if we can help them think differently, then we can help them act differently. And that's ultimately our goal. So we're changing the way they think, changing the way they feel first, to change the way they think, to then change what they do. So that's one thing you mentioned that's really critical. Another thing is, again, back to the stakes. As a speaker, what's often very helpful is looking at all of your material and asking yourself, how high are the stakes here on a scale of 1 to 10? And how can I raise the stakes for the audience so that the level of importance goes up? Because if it's pedestrian, it's not interesting. The stage, virtual stage or the actual stage, is a place for big ideas. It's a place for transformation. It's not a place for pedestrian behavior or activity. And then third, you mentioned that you would watch the jury and you'd listen to what they said. So one of the things that we recommend speakers do is put a little camera on stage facing the audience when they speak, so that they can see how the audience is responding to every moment of the speech. Because if there are certain moments where a lot of the audience pulls out their phone and starts doing this, that section is not working, and you got to go back and work on it. And then you just take 5 minutes at a time, keep working those 5 minutes, work those 5 minutes, work those 5 minutes, put it back into the speech the next time you deliver it, put the camera on it, see how the audience responds at that time. It's, something that people don't often do. They just put the camera on themselves and then they watch themselves, but you got to also watch your audience.
That's a great point. So for speakers who are just getting started, they're listening to this and they're like, okay, I do not have a referable speech yet. What should be their next step? Okay.
So make sure that your speech contains the 5 foundational elements of every great speech. Now, that doesn't mean that you introduce them in this order. You will include these elements in different ways in different speeches, depending on a number of different factors. But if you look at great speeches, these elements are in there. So the first foundational element is a big idea that challenges the status quo, because if the idea is not big, it's not important to anybody. It's not really worth that keynote stage. The second foundational element is a promise. And if the big idea is adopted, then the promise should be achieved. The third foundational element is being able to articulate, demonstrate, illustrate that you understand the way the world looks to the people in the room. Because
that's good.
When you are delivering big, challenging ideas, it can be provocative. And if the audience doesn't know you, look, if your hero comes out and challenges you, you're going to say, absolutely, I'm on it, let's go. Even if you don't know them. But I mean, personally, they're just your hero. But if a speaker comes out that you don't know, or you've maybe heard of but don't know well, and challenges you, the first human instinct that many people have is to protect themselves.
Right.
Because, if I'm challenging you to think differently or behave differently, and you don't want to have to do the work, because most of us don't want to have to do the work. The expression, the only person that likes a change is a baby with a wet diaper. Change is not easy. Change is hard. So if there's going to be a lot of change required, then they're going to look for excuses, reasons not to do it. And if they can say, yeah, right, I know that's important, but I'm different. You don't get me. They can they can just turn you off. They can say, that's it. No, I know, that's fine. It's for somebody else. Maybe that person over there.
Yeah.
But if they say, gee, you got my number, you nailed me, you got me, then they say, okay, I got to listen to this. So number 3 is being able to demonstrate that you understand the way the world looks to the people in the room. The fourth foundational element is being able to articulate the consequences of not adopting the big idea. If you stay just a speaker and not a performer, but you want the keynote stage and you stay in Expertville and you don't move into visionary town and deliver visionary transformational ideas, then you will probably get speeches, but they will be very small breakout rooms at small conferences. And if that's what you want, great. But if you want something else, then you're going to need to lean into this, because the consequence of not doing it means being set aside and put in those small rooms. So if we can articulate what the consequences of not adopting the big idea and achieving the promise are, it often moves people, because we know that people are often moved by pain. We want to move away from the pain that is associated with doing the wrong thing or not doing the right thing. So that's the fourth element. And then the fifth element is being able to demonstrate, illustrate, articulate the rewards of adopting the big idea and achieving the promise. And those rewards come in 4 different categories. Sometimes they're financial, sometimes they're emotional, sometimes they're physical, and sometimes they're spiritual. And it's our job to articulate those rewards in each one of those 4 categories at different points throughout our speech. So there's a big idea, a promise, being able to demonstrate the way the world looks to the people in the room, and not in generalities and not just giving lip service, but highly specific. Malcolm Gladwell was asked by Adam Grant in a podcast what kind of people he finds the most interesting. And he said, I find the people who are the most specific with their language the most interesting. Because all generalities are false, including that one. When we use a lot of generalities or absolutes, we do one of 2 things. We either soften an idea so they can't make it personal, and it just seems broad and far removed, Or if we use absolutes, we can easily poke holes. And very often we see speakers use a lot of absolutes in their language, and we encourage them to move away from that. So for example, if I said, look, no one likes earwax flavored ice cream, you might say, well, I could see that. But you know what? I knew this guy named Fritz in the second grade. That kid was weird. He used to put his finger in his ear and then he'd eat it. I bet he would like earwax flavored ice cream. Now, I don't want you thinking about that, right? Because now you're trying to figure out if I'm right. It's a complete waste of the audience's time. You can sit back and if I say, look, nobody should ever, walk on stage and jump right into the audience, just making it up. You might say, yeah, but once I saw a speaker do that and it worked really well. Instead, what we do is say, look, it's highly unlikely most people would like earwax flavored ice cream. And then you say, yeah, that makes sense. Boom, let's move on. When you use absolutes, you often create an opportunity for them to poke holes. It's just a natural human response. Mm-hmm. If you actually, and so it's counterintuitive to a certain degree, because I know the marketers will tell you use absolutes because that's good for marketing or for sales. Right. But sophisticated audiences who are trying to consume big ideas that may be complex, they do better generally when we give them room to consider the ideas. And so actually leaving room for other people's perspectives by saying often what we see is this, or it seems like many people, boom, then they go, yeah. It's a lot easier for them to get on board with the argument because they're not looking for the holes. And when you use an absolute, you're often closing down other perspectives. And it's very rare that we're 100% right. And just like for speaking, we don't think there's any one way to do this work. There are many different approaches. Our job is to provide processes, ways in for our students so that they can then take those processes, make them their own, and create their own style and their own way of working that is incredibly compelling to the audiences that they serve.
That is really good. Those 5 key elements to a referable speech, that is phenomenal. And I really, really appreciate your time in breaking that down, because there's no way you're listening to this podcast and not getting value out of what's been said already. Hopefully, you're scribbling notes ferociously and changing your speech and even your language, because I've said to the audience several times, people aren't hiring speakers. They are hiring experts. They want you to have an expertise or at least have a speech that can show them something different. But I've never thought of it in the sense of maybe that terminology is misleading because they're really wanting to hire a visionary, which has always been like my signature speech, The Currency of Confidence. It's about a big idea, how to use it to actually get what you want out of life and how it's literally a currency. And I think about that, and it's an expert speech, but it really is it's a visionary ideal that people can use to think about their lives differently.
Well, yeah, I watched your TEDx before the interview. I wanted to get to know you a little bit. And you are delivering a visionary transformational speech. It's not a how.
It must be true now that you said it.
Well, it's not a how-to speech.
Right.
It's a how to think speech.
Yeah.
And so that's why, if your position is a visionary, they go, look, we've got this visionary coming in. She's going to change the way you see X, Y, and Z, which is very different than, so we hired this expert and the expert's coming in to tell us what to do. And they're like, okay, you're already doing that visionary work and sometimes just relanguaging the way that we're positioning ourselves or even thinking about ourselves changes the nature of our work.
Absolutely. That really opened my eyes to that. And then the point that you made about Google is just, oh my goodness, I can't believe you gave that out for free. Because that's that's such an easy way to think about whether or not how you're positioning yourself is as an expert competing with Google or as a true visionary with big ideas. So how can people connect with you? What we definitely want to know when your book launches, what list do we need to be on to learn more about heroic public speaking? Tell us about how we can stay connected to you and learn more about the services that you offer currently.
Sure. So you can go to heroicpublicspeaking.com. That's heroicpublicspeaking.com. And of course, we have lots of resources there for free that you can take advantage of. You can also buy Steal the Show, which is the last book that I wrote on public speaking and communication. It's a tour de force on public speaking techniques. And you can, of course, buy it.
And it's very good, by the way. I have it on Audible.
Thank you so much. And then I also have a podcast under the same name, Steal the Show with Michael Port. So you can listen to that. And then in January, we have this new book coming out called The Referable Speaker. And we have a website up for thereferablespeaker.com. And you can just put in your name and email address, and then we'll let you know when it's available. And it's a cute little website, too, so you might have fun. There's a little, what do you call it? You know, when there's like a little hidden thing that you have to find? An Easter egg. That's what it is. There's a little Easter egg in there. If you can find it, you'll enjoy it. So there's a couple of ways to find us.
Awesome. Well, I will link to everything. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of your work. I just thought that the way that you explain concepts is so easy to understand. And I love the work that you're doing. So I'm happy to share with the community. And we have a lot of folks who are going to find immense value in the resources and even just the interview. Very, very grateful for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys for listening to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast. Check out all of the links in the show notes and definitely head over to heroicpublicspeaking.com to learn even more about Michael Port and the resources that he has for speakers. And remember, we are visionaries, not experts, and we do not compete with Google, folks. I'm out and I'll talk to you next time. All right. Wasn't that interview amazing? If you're anything like me, you have pages full of notes. But here's the thing. Before you head out, I want you to go to facebook.com and join the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group. That is where I am. That's where a ton of other speakers are, a ton of other people who listen to the show. We all congregate there and chat. And it's 100% free. Now, if you're ready to take your speaking career to the next level, I have 2 ways for you to do that. One, you can go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com/SYWTC live replay and pick up the live replay. That training is 7 modules, chock full of information. It's crazy. Go over there, read all about it. Or if you want a more personal experience, you already know that you want to be a speaker. You're ready to fully commit and you want someone to walk you through it and save you tons of time Googling and doing it on your own, then book a VIP day with me. You can go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com, scroll down until you see the VIP day section and get more information on that there. All right. Thank you guys again for watching. Please do not forget to leave us a review. That is how we keep this train rolling and get some of the best speakers in the world to get on this show. So please, please, please leave a review. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and Facebook in the Speak Your Way to Cash group, Instagram at the Ashley Nicole Show. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you and say hi. All right, y'all have an awesome, awesome day.